Oh, I think I see a Grove of the Burn Willow, so it looks like some sort of land strategy. Yep, and
Oh, wow.
no, the basic mountains you were seeing were actually the back of this gentleman's sleeves.
I see. And it looks like he is on Steel Stompy.
Steel Stompy, yeah, and he looks to be in a pretty bad spot. He has no mana sources in play, and I think the Lance player has their low mention going, so uh, no future potential for Lance entering play. He does have a Mox Opal though, so he does have some mana sources, but it looks like he might be locked down underneath his own ensnaring bridge a little bit. But there is a Jerry Thompson token in play, so the ensnaring bridge is obviously doing some good work here.
Yeah. So I think the Steel Stompy's player out here is to draw a mana source and a Walkman Ballista, which, depending on the life totals, may just be completely lethal.
He actually has a Ravager in play, so he can sack this ensnaring bridge at his leisure at any point he wants. And I think he actually drew a copy of Phyrexian Metamorph, which is a card that I don't see very often. But if he is able to play that and copy the Mirror Lake token and then sack his ensnaring bridge, he could probably set up a lethal attack in one turn. So an interesting board state here. The Lance player does have Tireless Tracker and Sylvan Library though, and I can only assume 4 copies of Crows and Grip in his deck after board. So the Stompy player is on a ticking time clock.
Yeah, let's count the total amount of damage that the Steel Stompy player could do, assuming that he went all in on these Ravagers. So there's 6 power on the Ravagers. There's an Overseer activation bringing it to 8. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional artifacts. So right now, the Steel Stompy player would have the ability to get 13 damage in.
14 if you sack a Ravager to itself or to a different Ravager.
Yeah, additionally. So, sorry, that's right. So there's the additional counter that you get there. And I think everything on the board is big enough where a single Punishing Fire is no longer relevant, so you don't have to worry about that. But you do have to worry about Crows and Grip. So, definitely.
So, perhaps the Stompy player here is... I'm not sure what the life totals are, but perhaps that's what the Stompy player is thinking about. Oh, there is a Maze of It, though, which kind of messes up all that math, right? But with 2 Ravagers and only 2 blockers, oh no, that's awkward because he could just block both Ravagers and then maze whatever gets put on. So the Stompy player probably has to sit on this Overseer for at least a couple more turns, unless they're able to find another Ravager or another way to push through.
Definitely, and it also looks like there's a Thespian stage in play. So right now, there's 4 creatures on the battlefield for the Stompy player, and affect 2 blockers. But what can happen is the Lance player can make a second copy of the Maze of It and effectively blank all 4 attackers from the Steel Stompy player. It might involve chump blocking with the Tireless Tracker, but they'd be able to stymie any attack.
So I think from the Lance side that his priority should be to, well, first off, to find a Crows and Grip, because that would probably just end the game outright. The Spellskite's not going to do much to stop that, but barring that, he should be trying to turtle up as much as possible so that he doesn't open himself up to these lines. So, like you said, copying the Maze of It is one of the ways he can do that, or perhaps getting a bunch of mana sources in place so that he can set up multiple Grove Punishing Fire activations to stop an all-in Ravager. This Sylvan Library is going to be somewhat effective for that. Not a card you see in lands very often. I know it's recently picked up in popularity again to combat a lot of the natural hate in the format for lands. But he can use that to find some exploration effects, hopefully. Or actually, there's a Chalice on one, so that's not going to be very effective.
Yeah.
But if that Chalice wasn't there... Oh, go ahead.
It looks like the Lance player has a relatively stocked graveyard, too. It's hard to make out any specific cards, but he probably has the Loam engine going at this point. So he's going to get to look at a lot of cards. Loam is not going to help him find Crows and Grip, but that Sylvan Library certainly will. So it looks like the Lance player is in a pretty good position here. But
yeah, definitely agree. The library letting him know whether or not he should dredger or draw Grip is also somewhat relevant.
Mm-hmm. Is the video paused for you right now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I think we're going to be starting or continue with it. All right.
So it's a pretty complicated board with quite a few interactions going on.
Mm-hmm. So that stage currently isn't a maze. Probably a rich port, judging by its positioning.
And the lone player opted to crack a clue and dredge his life from the loam. And actually, in the cards that he dredged, it looks like he hit one copy of Crow's Grip.
Yeah. What do you think about dredging there? I don't know the contents of the lance player's hands, but I know that there are a bunch of lands in there. Do you think he's looking for something specifically, like a tabernacle? And do you think that that's a more likely thing than trying to just draw into Crow's Grip? It might be. Tabernacle is something that we didn't mention.
Yeah, I think 3 looks at a tabernacle is probably a higher percentage play than a single look at a card of maybe 2 or 3 copies of Crow's Grip, depending on his build. Who knows? Maybe he's on all 4. But I think they're both pretty reasonable. Okay, and another Maze of Ith here is going to put this land's player way ahead. What do we have in hand? I saw a Gamble. I saw a copy of Darp Depths. I wasn't able to make anything else out.
Something that we didn't mention, the Maze of Ith gets stopped by the Spellskate. So depending on the life total, then he might be able to fight through these Maze of Iths. Although it only stops one of them, because once it's removed from combat, then it can no longer redirect the second Maze of Ith. So the second Maze of Ith there is going to make things a little bit more difficult. But so many things going on in this board state that it's difficult to parse through for the players.
Spellskite is not a card that you see very often in Legacy, but that is a pretty interesting interaction.
Stompy player just drew Leyline of the Void, which not the best card to draw right now.
It's a little late for that one.
Curious to know the life totals, because that affects us so much. But as it stands right now, it's very difficult for the Stompy player to have lethal. I believe I think he definitely needs a third copy of Earthbound Ravager. It's possible he's sandbagging some lands, because any land he plays is a one-time use. Assuming that the lands player has a wasteland somewhere in their graveyard or hand, so probably sandbagging some lands so that he can cast some high impact spells if he does draw them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like at the end of the turn we have a third copy of Maze of Ith made. Oh, look at that! There's a Tabernacle.
Oh, that's a rough one.
That's gonna feel good.
Well, there is that Mox Elbow, so he gets to keep one guy, but not gonna be good enough in the face of this. He just miracles the Tabernacle onto the battlefield, and that just prompts a concession. So,
jeez.
Yeah, it's clear that was the land player's game plan to find Tabernacle.